Middle Way Philosophy, Introductory Video 3A, Optionality, How Having More Options Can Improve Our Lives, by Robert M. Ellis. This is a tributary video to video number 3 on provisionality. In that previous video, we saw how provisionality requires optionality. That is, if we're going to be able to change our minds when necessary, we need other options. We need to be able to gain access to alternatives. Desire is the basic motivation behind human life, and every desire forms goals, whether that goal is the desire for a sandwich in the short term or the desire for, say, a medical career in the long term. To reach our goals, we have to act in particular ways, but sometimes our actions are frustrated. We're not able to reach the goals we want to reach. If we're blocked in that way, then we need alternative options. Perhaps we try another option, but maybe that's blocked as well. And then perhaps we try a third option, and finally we reach the goal. If we were stuck in the first option, we would never have got near that goal. It's optionality that enables us to succeed. But optionality isn't simply about finding alternative ways to a goal that remains fixed. We may start off with one kind of goal, and we may try to get there, and we may be blocked. We may try other routes, and they may be blocked too. And then optionality may require that we actually change our goal. For example, suppose you set out to have a career as a doctor, but you were frustrated, you failed your exams, you didn't get there, but you changed your goal slightly. You decided to become a paramedic. That fulfilled much of what you decided to do in the first place, if not all of it. Optionality should not be confused with choice, though choice is a type of optionality, but there's many other kinds of optionality apart from choice. Choice is explicit. In choice, we think about different options that we represent to ourselves consciously and select between them. Optionality, on the other hand, is a wider issue. It's about what we can think about to begin with. It's about bringing possibilities to the fore in our minds, but it's also about the possibilities that we might even consider unconsciously. So animals also can have optionality, even if they don't make conscious choice between alternatives. Optionality is thus a much wider, possibly the semi or unconscious set of alternatives, not simply a way of talking about rational or explicit alternatives. We often identify explicit choice with freedom, and we take that freedom to be a good thing. But that kind of freedom is often an absolutization or just an abstraction. Think about being in a supermarket. In theory, you have a huge range of goods that you could buy. But usually this is just a theory. What amongst this huge range of goods would you actually be motivated or have reason to buy? That's where optionality comes in. Which of these possible things would be a real option for you that you might actually consider? That's a much more genuine kind of freedom than the abstraction of theoretical free will. Imagination is central to this more genuine type of optionality. Imagination stretches us in all kinds of possible directions. This is not simply self-indulgence. It's more preparation for unknown conditions. But optionality isn't just about the inward conditions of the imagination. It's also about the outward conditions. For example, the facilities, that is, what makes it possible to act in certain ways. Imagine that there's a swimming pool in your locality. That gives you the possibility, the option, of going swimming. Perhaps your imagination would not have been stimulated to even consider the possibility of going swimming if the swimming pool hadn't existed. So although we do need the imagination interacts in all kinds of complex ways with what we regard as the external world. In some ways, it's simply having more options available to you in your imagination. that makes the difference and helps you address a wider range of conditions in your life, including unexpected ones. It helps you adapt to those new conditions. However, it's also a matter of the range of options available to you, not simply the quantity. Imagine an analogy with playing cards. Let's say the range of playing cards reflects the range of ideas in your imagination. The right-hand set of playing cards here contains more cards, but the left-hand set contains a wider range and diversity of cards. So imagine there was a door coming up which required you to have a red card. It's only the left-hand set that would allow you through that door, not the right-hand set. The door can stand for a new set of conditions where a new kind of response is required. So here, the idea of a red or a black card or a particular kind of card might stand for engagement in a different culture, say, or a different kind of ideology that goes beyond your original background. Another image that might help to illustrate the idea of optionality is the toolbox. It's not simply the number of tools that you have in your toolbox that's important, but the variety. A toolbox which only consisted of lots of different varieties of screwdrivers wouldn't help you very much in a situation that demanded a hammer. So it's different spread of tools that help you deal with a spread of problems. In neural terms, optionality is more like a network that we could compare to a canal network. In a canal network, there may be some deeper, well-used, easily accessible canals. These are our habitual beliefs that we expect to proceed along rapidly, that we use in everyday life all the time. But there are also smaller canals. There are other routes we can take when necessary to reach more unexpected kinds of places. These enable us to respond to new conditions. Now imagine that there's a blockage in our usual habitual routes. Perhaps our usual strategies aren't working. There's some unexpected frustration or stressor in our lives. So the effect of that may well be that the water starts to overflow. We have to access new kinds of ways of thinking, new ideas, which may take us in unexpected directions beyond the network that we're used to walking around. Given how important optionality is for addressing different new conditions in our lives, restricting the options can have a very negative effect. Restricting the options is an alternative name for what's sometimes also described as false dilemma or false dichotomy, because usually in these examples there are only two possible options given. A whole situation is presented in terms that limit us only to two or possibly more habitual ways of thinking rather than new creative solutions. Here's a couple of examples of restricting the options from politics. George W. Bush's "either you're with us or you're with the terrorists." There's no possibility of possibly criticising Bush's policy whilst not being in favour of the terrorists in this way of presenting things. More recent alternative from the UK: someone's obviously lying. Who do you think it is? 53,000 doctors or Jeremy Hunt? We're not allowed here to think about the possibility that nobody's lying, or that what's presented as lying may be more complicated. To summarise then, optionality is an effect of provisionality. Provisionality and optionality are interdependent. It allows alternative routes to our goals or alternative goals. Optionality is different from choice because choices do offer options, but not all options are conscious choices. Optionality depends on outward facilities and also inner imagination, again interdependent with one another. Optionality helps us to adapt to differing circumstances, and that's where its crucial value lies in the long term. Blockages or frustrations, new conditions that go against what we wish, can stimulate new options. But restricting the options in the way that we think about things limits our imagination in finding solutions to conflict.